you need to close the door and lock it, because if they had a right to be asking questions, they wouldn't be knocking and they wouldn't be asking questions. The only reason they're asking questions is because they don't have what they need to lock you up. Today we have 2 people that we're including in this conversation, aside from me, obviously. But we're going to include both of them because they both have pretty interesting takes, and I think that we should include both of them in order for me to properly explain what I did, why I did it, and how I did it. So let's get to it. Okay, so first we have a comment by Aaron Israel, and I'll hit these one at a time. And he said, how did you keep track of the locations that are cooling off for 6 months? So what he's referring to in this is a statement that I said where I was describing essentially that I would go and I would have these post offices that when I use them, I would use them and I wouldn't use them again for 6 months in order to give them kind of a cool down period, or like if they had set up surveillance on that particular spot and it was physical surveillance, I wouldn't be back for 6 months. So their surveillance would be fruitless or wouldn't last that long. Much of the time, they're actually just going to follow you back to the location of wherever you reside. Now, they weren't following me, they were following my cousin, which is a very important distinction to make. But with that said, essentially, I kept a list. And I know right off the bat, people are freaking out about this. Give me 2 seconds to explain this before you go nuts. So he says, if you only send 3 packages per office, then I assume there's a lot of post offices around considering the volume of sales you do. Definitely not. It's rural Vermont. There's not very many post offices at all, at all. We could have a major city, and that major city might only have 2. Towns might only have 2. They do not have a lot at all. So also, how much were you paying your cousin for that work? That is a kind of a layered question. So basically, there was a few different pay options that I had enabled for her, right? And the first one was a standard fee. So I gave her like $5 for each package she sent, no matter what. Like that was just a flat fee. And doesn't sound like a lot, but there were times we were sending out, we'll just say more than 100 packages a day, right? So $500 cash, not a bad deal really for a day's work. Whatever I'm netting at the end of the month, I would give her 10% of that. That's a lot of money, especially for someone who's just delivering packages. It's really not, in my opinion, it's really not something that was deserving. She didn't earn 10% of the profits by a long shot. And my argument at the time would have been loyalty. So let me ask you this. You let's say you're the type to fold, like to rat. Now, maybe you're an economical rat, right? So this is my hope. This is what I'm trying to get in the mind of someone who does this, and I'm trying to figure out how would they be, because it's not how I am. So it's guesswork for me at this point. So for me, it would be like, you're presented with a choice. You can, snitch on one dude who, if you're going to rat anyways. So you're going to snitch on this one dude who, maybe you get a pound for $800, or you can snitch on this other dude who you get a pound of the same kind of cannabis for $2,500. Which connect are you less likely to tell on? That was my philosophy. So I was like, well, if I compensate her really well, maybe it'll motivate her enough to stay on point and do her job properly. No, it's not something that's a thing. That's not going to happen. Complacency is like time. It's basically, it seeps into everything. It affects every facet of what you're doing, especially when we're talking about from an operational security standpoint. So I hope that's the answer enough to your question. Also, it was basically anything that I had. So the cannabis, moonshine, with everything with the exception of, the powder cocaine, acid, ecstasy, all that stuff, Molly. she just had like however much she wanted. If she wanted like product like that, she could have it. She couldn't, obviously she can't take 3 pounds, but for personal use, you take whatever you want. I didn't care. So that was pretty much a on tap kind of deal, like car payments, all that kind of stuff. If she was set, she had nothing that she had no actual bills she had to spend her money on. So that wasn't something I had to worry about her, oh, she's got to pay all these bills. She didn't have anything to pay. Everything was paid for her. And that's the deal. So, she made a great amount of money. The feds didn't go after her for anything, because ultimately she had said that she was forced to send packages out, which makes no sense considering the fact she quit her job and moved up to Vermont to do this. So there's that. Now, for the second person, they said, second this, keeping track of locations would be easy if you take good notes. However, that has the implication of providing evidence against you if said notes are found and read by others. I agree with this. Absolutely. Now, I did keep a list. I wasn't kidding when I said that earlier, but it was encrypted. It's encrypted with my PGP key. That said, even if it wasn't, I don't think it would have mattered. I'm not going to say there was other evidence that they didn't get, but they're not perfect. Right? They're not all knowing. The feds, very far from that. They're average people. They get up and they go to work every day. And, I know it was really cold out when I had gotten raided, and they went through the entire house, this team of 20 some odd people from Department of Homeland Security, state police, but they went through mostly DHS, went through the entire house, and they were tired at the end. And they asked me, they were like, is there anything in the garage? And I was like, no, it's all automotive stuff. And there totally was just all automotive stuff. There was no contraband whatsoever in the garage. So my point is, they're far from, to get every little thing it's not really a thing. Like my opsec, like, you kept a list. Oh, I can't believe you kept a list. I did. But, at the same time, I'm not the admin of Alphabay. I didn't keep it in a plain text file open on my desktop. It was something that just wasn't the case. It was something that I had, and it was encrypted, and when I wanted to access it, I accessed it, like I accessed all my messages and put in my PGP key to unlock it. So that wasn't something that I was really concerned about. And, to be honest, I think, the whole, what would happen if they found the list of these towns? Well, nothing. I mean, the same thing that would happen when they found a list of, customers with, I mean, I didn't write down a list, but I had receipts. You hold on to receipts for about 14 days. Yeah. Unless packages have made it, then you shred them and you burn them. But if you don't do that, you have to hold on to tracking numbers in case you have a dispute in order to prove that you sent the package. So you have to hold on to receipts for some period of time, unless, you just want to trust these customers that you don't know. So my point with that is that, like, when I got popped, these receipts existed, and you're not going to, like, I know some of the names on the receipts, and there were no indictments from them. Because at the end of the day, if I order narcotics in your name right now, it's next to impossible to prove that you ordered it because you didn't. So what would happen is, they would knock on your door, or they'd come with a warrant, and, hopefully you don't have anything. But at the end of the day, if you didn't say anything, if they come and they're like, hey, we found out that you ordered, this package from a Darknet vendor. What do you have to say about that? Do I really need to explain what you need to say about that? You need to close the door and lock it, because if they had a right to be asking questions, they wouldn't be knocking and they wouldn't be asking questions. The only reason they're asking questions It's because they don't have what they need to lock you up. So I think even if I had it in that particular thing, in a plain text, like printed out, I really don't think it would matter because it's a list of towns. That's it. I mean, obviously, it's like, what could they do with it? Well, they could take it. They could go look at, camera footage and are they going to do that? Probably not. I mean, 9 times out of 10, with a lot of darknet vendors that get busted, if you watch the podcast that I do, you see that a lot of the mistakes these guys make, they're not some super low level, exploit that the feds do in order to gain access to stuff. It's usually something ridiculously stupid, putting your real email address in headers, or, shipping out packages with your real return home address and you're shipping out fentanyl, incredibly stupid stuff. So, and also it's perfectly legal to have a list of different towns. If you even wanted to answer questions, totally plausible thing. I'm looking at real estate in those areas. But again, my point is I had a list because I had to keep track of it. I'm not going to memorize 180 towns every day. Every day, oh, well, remove the last one and remember the new ones. It's just not going to happen, man. And if you can do that, props to you. I can't. My memory sucks. It's why I don't lie. It doesn't, I'm not good at it. It's much easier for me just to be honest. And obviously, within reason. So that said, I hope that answered your questions. And yes, I had a list, but it was encrypted and it was never brought up in my discovery. It didn't really matter at the end of the day. And that was mainly because I maintained access for my encryption keys the entire time. It wasn't something, I was never forced to decrypt anything. And, truth be told, you really can't be forced to decrypt anything. All you have to say is, I forgot. I don't recall. These are very simple things that are going to do you a ton of justice in the long run. So that's my advice. And that's the answers to your questions. I'll see you in the next video.